Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm going to shed light to the views that has to be implemented under this feature, such as login form, register form, toolbar, as well as user menu. It doesn't matter which view we're going to implement first. Let's implement user menu. We need basically to hoist the method on logout, the method wishlist click, whenever we click on this particular user menu, as well as to toggle on and off dark theme, the initials, basically the first and last letter for the username, wishlist count, those are pretty much the dependencies here. Let's add a public initializer. Under the user menu, we need to add the view theme toggle. Therefore, we need the binding is dark theme. Let's add it to the initializer, and we have to initialize it here by doing is dark theme equal is dark theme. Now the button that's going to activate or to make the menu appear or disappear, we're going to hoist, as I said before, the click or on click. And we have to open basically the menu. Let's first of all make the presentation for this menu button. It consists of basically a text. Let's place here the initials. It's gonna be medium on primary. I'm gonna add here a padding, background primary. It's gonna be a circle shape, some shadow, radius should be medium. For testing purposes, we have to add the accessibility identifier, toolbar user menu. Now to make the same presentation that we have done under Kotlin, we need to simulate basically right here the menu and the menu items. The solution that I've thought of is basically to do here an overlay or to present the items within an overlay. Basically, it's going to contain, it's going to be placed as an overlay over this particular view, which is a button. I'm going to wrap the first section within a VStack, the alignment lead-in and spacing 12 for the first menu item. It is a button, and on click, we have to call the function on wishlist click. Let's rename this to on wishlist manager click. I'm going to represent this menu item by horizontal stack, the first element, which is the image, and the second element, which is the text, holding the text my wishlist. The first element, which is the image, and the second element, which is a text from local keys, my wishlist. And I'm gonna add here a spacer to space between the image and the text, and the circle containing the wishlist count. We can represent the wishlist count as a text, body medium, on primary, a padding, and the background, as I said before, it has to be color, theme, and error. Clip shape, it has to be circle shape. I'm gonna fold this section. For testing purposes, I'm going to assign this accessibility identifier for this button, my wishlist. The next element, which is the menu related to toggling on and off the wishlist, it shouldn't be a button. I'm gonna copy only this particular section. Instead of this image name, I'm gonna do here palette. Instead of this, it has to be switch theme. After the spacer, instead of the text, we have to do the theme switch view that we have implemented before. And we should provide here the binding, which is dark theme. Now we don't have actually to assign anything here as far as the accessibility identifier goes. Now under this particular h-stack, I'm gonna add here a divider. With the same manner, I have to represent the next item or next menu item for the logout. Instead of on wishlist manager click, we're going to do on logout or on logged out. It should be named here on logout. For the image, it is logout variant. For the label, it's logout. And I will keep the spacer and I have to delete this text. For the accessibility identifier, it should be logout. Underneath, I'm going to add a padding, a background color, background, corner radius, medium, a shadow, and for testing purposes, an accessibility identifier, user menu container. I don't think that this VStack is mandatory. I'm gonna delete this VStack. I'm gonna keep it initially like this, and if it doesn't look good, we're going to change this accordingly. Now, this is not enough to handle the animation. We haven't yet specified whether this menu should be visible once clicking on this button or not. Therefore, we're going to handle right now the visibility of the menu. Once clicking on the button, we're going to show the menu, and we're going to do it with animation. We need here an internal state to control the visibility is menu expanded equal false. Now, whenever we click on this button, we need to toggle the visibility of this container that we have added here under the overlay section. Of course, we're going to do this with animation. Therefore, after clicking on this, we're going to do with animation is menu expanded and toggle. Now, under the overlay for each menu item, once clicking on a particular menu item, we have to close the menu. Therefore, before triggering the function on wishlist manager click, we need first of all to close the menu. With animation, I'm going to copy this. Likewise, for the menu item logout, in this particular case, I would like to make it as the second order. I'm going to call first of all the logout function and close the menu. Now I would like to add here some animation to the container of the menu, frame, and width. If it's expanded, 250, otherwise just 20. And for the opacity, hide the menu once it's not expanded. Therefore, I'm gonna add here is menu expanded 1, otherwise 0. To make it more appealing, we have to add here the offset for the both positions X and Y. It should be either on the left side or the right side of the button, menu button. Therefore, I'm going to create here an enum. Let's call it user menu anchor position. The first case, which is left and right. Let's give the developer the freedom to choose left or right. I'm going to add here a private property. Let's assign it in the initializer. By default, let's make it left. All right, let's come back here under offset. If the anchor position equal left, this value should be, for example, let's make it to the extreme 110 or 150, for example, and we have to do the opposite basically, 110. Otherwise, let's do, for example, 45 or 60. And for the Y position, if it is expanded 90, we're going to push it a little bit down, if you will. Otherwise, it should be 0 from the same position of the user menu button. To make sure that we are done things correctly, let's create a preview for this. It has to be interactive. Let's add an internal state. Let's call it isDarkTheme for the dark theme. Now let's use the user menu and let's align the user menu at the top of the VStack, and let's place the user menu at the right corner of the screen. User menu on dark theme switch isDarkTheme equal isDarkTheme. For the initials, let's do, for example, AB, wishlist count, I don't know, let's do 2. Let's provide here the binding is dark theme, a padding, and that's all. Let's see how it's gonna look like. Let's make sure to do here, first of all, authentication feature, refresh. Let's click on this user menu, and we have the menu as expected. Let's switch basically from dark to light theme, and here we go. We have to find a way actually to close the menu once clicking on this particular section. On change is menu expanded, or going to delay basically this operation by doing this patch queue async after. The animation is going to take almost less than a second. Let's do, for example, 0.5 or 0.3. I'm going to change the user menu item, but with animation. All right, let's see how it's going to look like. I think it's good. All right, let's leave it at this. And we are done basically implementing the user menu. Let's start with the most easiest one, login form. As dependencies, we need the state of the login form, the event that should be triggered, and we have to hoist the method on register now to switch to the other register form, as well as the action to be triggered on close, and whenever the user is logged in or has logged in, and basically the pass-through subject that we have defined under the view model. For the state of this particular login form, it should be of type binding. Now let's provide the initializer for this particular view. I'm going to wrap the whole section under scroll view, under VStack. Let's add the alignment, for example, lead in, and let's provide some spacing. If you do remember under Jetpack Compose, we have basically handled the warning message or the feedback message after the user has provided wrong credentials. We have to show an alert message, if you will. We're going to do this basically here. Alert visible. We have to use the warning message. And for the icon name, let's do information. For the background, it should be error. Add the rounded corners to this particular warning message, rectangle shape, and some overall padding. Shadow, for example, theme and medium. And because I want this to be animated, I'm going to combine opacity as well as move transition. Opacity combined with, it's going to appear from bottom to top. I'm going to fold this section. Now we have handled basically the feedback message or the warning message, vstack. And let's add the alignment to leading as we have done here. For the first element, we have to place here the label email underneath the text field or the text input. For the value, because it's a binding, state, and email. For the label, empty string, let's add an accessibility identifier. For the leading icon name, it's going to be email outline, I guess. For the has error, it's going to be from the state, an email error, and we have to provide the localized value. Likewise, for the password, instead of email password, here it should be password. For the accessibility identifier, password, the name of the icon, it's lock, and we have to provide here the trailing icon name. Now, if it is visible, we should use I, otherwise, let's provide here the icon colors, secondary. I'm going to provide again here the icon colors. Let's provide it here. For the has error, it should be has password error. For the error content, password error or password required, I guess. Now we have to change the input type. If the state is password visible, it should be text, otherwise password. Now we have to change the visibility of the password by trailing icon click. Trigger the event, toggle password visible. All right, I'm going to fold this section. Now we have to add the clickable text to change or to switch to the other form, register form. And we have to make it at the center of the form. And we have to add here the button. I'm going to show the text register now, body medium, or let's do body large, capitalized for the foreground primary and underline. Let's add to this particular button an accessibility identifier for testing purposes already registered. I'm gonna fold this section. I'm gonna add a divider, another h-tag that's going to push all the elements to the right of the form, containing basically the cancel or the close modal and the progress button login. The first button, which is the close button, and the progress button. Now for the state of loading, it is state unloading. I'm going to add here the width. Let's do, for example, 100. For the background color, primary, whenever we click on this particular button, we have to trigger the event login. We need to show the alert message with the animation. Therefore, we have to trigger the event, which is set alert, by using the animation. For the message, local keys and raw login credentials. And for the visibility, it should be true. We have to provide for this particular progress button an accessibility identifier. The value of this accessibility identifier is login button. Now for the contents of this progress button, it consists of a normal text showing the label login. I'm gonna add an overall padding to this particular progress button and some shadow. Here we have to specify the animation. Easing out for the value that's controlling the animation, which is basically the state alert visible. Now we need to observe to trigger the callback function on logged in. How to do so? By using onReceive. Whenever we receive a value from the publisher user has logged in events, we're going to assign the value of the user by calling onLoggedIn and passing the user as an argument. That's all for the login form. It's not that complicated. Let's do a preview for this as usual. This is the internal state that we're going to use. And let's use the login form. Form state. For the user has logged in, it's going to be empty. Now for the on event, we're going to implement basically internally toggle password visible, set alert, as well as login. For the first case, toggle password visible. In case of set alert, we're going to set basically the alert message and visible from the value set alert. Let's simulate the login function. Let's change the value of should validate. If we have has email error as well as has password error, we're not going to proceed. Otherwise, we're going to simulate basically the login process. Now we have to change the value is loading to true. Now after a certain timeout, we're going to simulate the login procedure. If we have provided the wrong credentials, going to show the alert message. If we have provided the correct credentials, we're going just to print something to the console. All right, this is our form. Let's do, for example, the correct email. I can't even remember what is the correct email. I'm going to activate the validation when the user clicks on this particular login button. Let's refresh this. I'm going to copy the correct email. Let's rename this to login form. I'm going to provide right now the correct email. Whatever we do here in the password, we can toggle on and off the visibility of password. Now let's see the progress indicator as well as the alert. We need to provide basically a wrong email. Let's go. After 2 seconds, we have no such user found with the given credentials. Please try again. This is what's going to happen basically in our application. It looks good as well as the animation. It looks good. Now let's provide the correct one. Okay, so after that, I think that after calling this, we have to change basically the state of loading to false. All right, let's try again. Provide here whatever email. We have the alert. Now we have the correct email. I just want to see the message here. Login with email and email.email. All right, that's pretty much it for the login form. I don't think that we have forgot anything. Everything has been handled correctly. Let's go ahead and define the register form. With the same manner, we need the binding for the state as well as the event to be triggered, and we have to hoist on login click and on close click. With the same manner, I want the whole component to be scrollable. If the alert is visible, in this particular form, we distinguish between two cases. The first one, if we have an alert type of type success, we're going to show basically the icon check circle, otherwise information. Let's add a padding and it has to occupy the max width. For the background, it is a little bit different according to the state of alert type. If it is success, theme, and success, otherwise it has to be error. And for the rest, it's similar. We're going to clip shape with some corner radius of medium, padding and shadow, and to assign the transition to combine the opacity as well as moving from bottom to top. For the rest is pretty self-explanatory. We're going just to put the label for the full name and its dedicated text field, as well as email, password, and password confirmation. Next, we have to put at the center of the form the button to switch back to the login form, as well as the divider. With the same manner, we're going to place everything at the right corner, including the close button as well as the progress button. Now let's focus on what should be done under the action section. We're going to trigger the event register. In case the user has successfully registered, we're going to show the alert message telling the user, welcome to have you with us. Therefore, we have to trigger the event set alert. And of course, we're going to trigger the event with animation. The type of this alert is success, and it has to be visible. And we're going to pass the name of the username to the message registered. And we have to provide basically the user as an argument, or the username as an argument. With the same manner, in case of error, we're going to show with animation the alert message of type error. And of course, the message from the string resource that we have defined under core UI. Now let's try to define basically with the same manner that we have done under login form, the register form preview. For the state, it is basically a binding. We are not interested in this either. Now let's implement the events on events. For the case of toggle password visible, it's the same thing. We're going to start to switch back and forth from visible to invisible. Likewise for confirm password, with the same manner that we have done under the login form, we're going to implement the set alert visible. Now let's implement the register function. Let's activate the validation by changing the state should validate to true. Just to simulate this particular scenario, if we haven't provided basically an already registered user, we're going to show the success message, otherwise an error message. First of all, we have to check basically that the form is valid. Next, if we have provided an email, for example, let's just do if we have provided the same email from the mock data, we're going to show on error, otherwise on registered. First, we have to change the state of isLoading for the loading indicator. And after a certain timeout, we have to proceed by using dispatch queue async after. Inside this block, we're going to do our stuff, an email equal mock data and correct email. This email is taken, I'm going to show on error, otherwise on registered. And we have to pass here the state and username. For the function on reset, we're going to assign everything to empty string, as well as should validate to false. As you can see here, by adopting the event-driven approach, it's easy for us to preview our components in isolation, because our components does not rely on the view model. This is our form. I'm going just to check first of all that the values, all right, that's correct. Okay, right now I'm going to provide the same email for the password, whatever. Now let's try to register. We have an error because we have provided a taken email. I'm going to provide any other email than that particular email. All right, just to simulate this, I have forgot basically after this, I'm going to change the state. That's good. I think that's pretty much it for this particular form. Now we have to implement the toolbar. Let's go ahead under toolbar and create a new view. The toolbar basically is going to group everything together, register form, login form, as well as the user menu. Therefore, we can infer the needed state. We have three bindings, is dark theme, the form type to toggle back and forth, and the binding for login states as well as register states. We need the pass-through that we have defined under login form, as well as the auth state, and the method that should be hoisted on login form events, on register form events, on logged out, on logged in, on user menu click, on wishlist click, as well as on dark theme switched. Now let's define the public initializer. In this particular toolbar, we have basically two states. The first one, if the user is authenticated and the user is not authenticated. Therefore, we're going to use here zstack to group everything, top lead in. Now, if the user is authenticated, we have to show the user menu. If the user is not authenticated, we need to show a button that's going to open for us the modal. I'm going to mark this by to do. I will try to simulate basically the same button under Jetpack Compose with a text and a trailing icon. Therefore, I have to use hstack and the alignments center, and let's add some spacing between the two elements. For the first element is text containing the label login, and it has the color on primary. Underneath, we're going to place the image login, and for the 10th color on primary. And for testing purposes, we have to add an accessibility identifier for this particular button. If you do remember, under Core UI, we have implemented a controller for the modal. It's basically a view model. You have two options, whether to inject the modal right here, or you can hoist the method to open the modal. It doesn't matter, it's not that complicated actually to inject this particular one in the toolbar, and it's not going to be hard for us to provide basically the modal controller, since the modal controller does not have any dependencies whatsoever. Therefore, I'm going to do here environment object to inject it here. Let's call it modal controller of type modal controller. And we can do modal controller and show. And we have to specify here content to be shown as modal. For readability purposes, I'm going to make this content as a dedicated view Therefore, under toolbar, I'm going to create another view. I'm going to call it auth modal content. If the user choose, for example, the login form, it's going to show login form. If the user switch to the register form, it's going to switch to register form. Just a simple wrapper around the two forms, login and register. Therefore, we need basically the same state of form type, login state, register state, the pass-through, as well as the method to be hoisted. For the form type and login state and register state, this should be binding. I'm going to disable the preview for now. And because we are going to close the modal as soon as the user clicks on the close button, we need again to inject, by using environment object, modal controller. Or you can hoist this method. For the presentation of this particular view, we're going to show basically a modal, and we have to structure the dialog. Everything has to be presented within a VStack. VStack is going to structure the title of the modal or the dialog, as well as the main content. For the title, it's going to vary from register to login and vice versa according to the form type. Let's make it bold. Let's place it at the left corner of our modal. Let's add some padding, the background primary, and the outer padding, let's do just bottom. Now, if the form type is login, we have to show the login form. Now, whenever we click on register now click, we need to switch back to register form with animation and form type equal register. On close click, we're going to do here modal controller and dismiss. Now we have to show the register form. And again, with the same manner, if we click on login, we have to switch to the login form. On close click, modal controller and dismiss. I'm going to fold this section. For the height of the login form, I'm going to assign it, for example, 350 or 350. For the register form, let's make it 65% or 70% of the screen height. And the background should be theme and background. We don't need actually here the preview. I'm gonna delete the preview. Let's use the auth modal content in the toolbar. Then we can do the preview right here. Instead of the parentheses, I'm gonna use here the curly braces and do auth modal content. For the form type, it should be binding and form type. Login state, binding as well. Same goes for register state. The pass-through, we are just filling the blanks on login form events, on register form events. That's all we have for the contents of the modal. Now we have to prepare a preview for this. It's gonna take some time. I'm gonna be right back once done implementing the preview. All right, I'm gonna walk you through what I have done basically in this toolbar preview. I have just copied the same thing that we have done under login form as well as register form. We need a state of is dark theme, auth state, form type, login form and whatnot. And we have to provide the modal controller. Now inside the content, basically the screen consists of a vertical sequence. Let's just place the toolbar at the top right corner of our screen. That's what I have done here basically. Combination of VStack and HStack. This is a very classic combination. And we have used the toolbar. For the implementation of login form event, we have done basically the same thing in the login form event preview. The same thing for the register form event. On logout, which is very important here, to assign the null value, you have to use sum. If you don't use sum, it's not gonna work correctly. On logged in, we're going just to close the modal. The authenticated user is from the mock data. To occupy the max size and the max height, for the background secondary. For the host, we have to place here the host where the modal is going to be placed, the parents of our components or the tree of our views. And we have to provide environment objects. Otherwise, the application is going to crash. This is the login button. Let's click on this. I think that we have to change the height. Let's do, for example, 450 or 500. I think 450 is too much. Let's do 400. I don't know. We can fix it later on. All right. Anyway, let's try to log in by providing the correct email. All right. Let's simulate basically this scenario. I want to see the login or the user menu right here. So else, if we have provided the correct credentials, is loading to false, auth state equal auth state, and copy. Authenticated user, which is basically mock data, and user DTO to user. On logged in, we need to close the dialog. All right, that's pretty much it. Let's see if it's gonna work. All right, we have the menu, and let's log out. Let's come back here, and we need to close basically the dialog afterward, because here we're going just to show the snack bar right here, and let's see how it's gonna look like. All right, we have the user menu. Let's log out. Let's switch to the other form. And it is scrollable. You can scroll underneath to click on register. That's pretty much it for the toolbar. I think that we have done pretty much everything under the auth feature. For the next video, going to focus on the wishlist feature. I hope you have learned something new. See you in the next one, and happy coding.